Imagine a summer day, 5 centuries ago. The year is 1580 in the bustling city of Strasbourg, nestled in the heart of the Holy Roman Empire. The air is warm, the streets are alive, and life, for most, follows its predictable rhythm. They danced in the streets, in their homes, in market squares. They danced until their feet bled, until they collapsed from exhaustion, until their hearts gave out. It was a bizarre, tragic spectacle that defies easy explanation. A footnote in history that sounds more like a twisted fairy tale than a recorded fact. Utterly bewildered by this escalating crisis, first try to understand it through the lens of their time. They opened to guild halls in a grain market for the afflicted. The relentless music and the sheer visibility of the dancing seemed to exacerbate the phenomenon. More people joined, seemingly drawn into the collective frenzy. What truly caused this terrifying phenomenon? Was it poison? Disease? Mass hysteria? Ergot contains alkaloids that can cause convulsions, hallucinations, and muscle spasms, symptoms that could be mistaken for dancing. Indeed, ergotism was responsible for other historical outbreaks, sometimes known as St. Anthony's fire. However, experts point out that while ergotism can cause spasms, it typically constricts blood vessels, leading to gangrene, and it would likely incapacitate victims, not make them capable of dancing for days on end. Also, victims of ergotism usually don't have the clear desire to dance that was reported. While a compelling idea, it doesn't fully explain all the symptoms or the mass psychological aspect. The city quickly realized its grave error as dancers began to drop. Fatigue, dehydration, exhaustion, heart attacks, and strokes became rampant. However, no known disease fits the exact description of the dancing plague, with its unique combination of compulsive movement and apparent mental anguish. This phenomenon occurs when groups of people experience similar physical symptoms, without any known organic cause, often in response to intense psychological stress. Estimates suggest that at its peak, the plague was claiming as many as 15 victims a day. People were literally dancing themselves to death. They even built a temporary stage in the middle of the city square. They understood this was no ordinary illness. This was a crisis of mind and body, requiring a different approach. The stages were torn down. The musicians were sent away. Public dancing was strictly forbidden. Those afflicted were instead taken to shrines dedicated to Saint Vita, a Christian martyr believed to have the power to cure danzimonia. They were given red shoes, blessed by priests, and told to walk quietly, to pray. The emphasis shifted from active encouragement to quiet spiritual and physical rest. Slowly, gradually, the number of dancers dwindled. By early September, the epidemic had mostly subsided. They hired musicians to play lively tunes, drums and pipes, and brought in strongmen, professional dancers, to literally keep the afflicted moving, day and night. The logic was tragically flawed. If it was a compulsion that needed to run its course, better to facilitate it than to suppress it. This was an era dominated by strong religious beliefs and a rudimentary understanding of medicine. Initial theories ranged from demonic possession to a literal plague sent by God. But as the numbers swelled and the suffering intensified, more practical, albeit bizarre, solutions were sought. But recorded it was by physicians, chroniclers, and civic authority, leaving us with a chilling puzzle that continues to baffle historians and scientists alike. Until, that is, a single woman steps out into the narrow cobblestone street and begins to dance. Her movements were jerky, agitated, devoid of joy or rhythm. She seemed compelled, unable to stop. For hours she danced. Then for days, passers-by would have watched in bewildered amusement, perhaps thinking it a strange performance or a fit of madness. But within a week, 3 more people joined her, then dozens. By August, as many as 400 people were caught in this relentless, involuntary ballet of suffering. Not a graceful waltz, not a joyful jig. This was different. This was involuntary. This was uncontrollable. They twisted and twirled, jumped and swayed, their faces contorted not in ecstasy, but in exhaustion, pain, and a grim, unyielding determination. They were described as twitching, convulsing, unable to rest or eat. The dancing was not a choice, it was a torment. It was a fever, a mania, a living nightmare that consumed their bodies and their minds. And it was about to become an epidemic. Welcome to one of history's most bizarre, unsettling, and ultimately inexplicable events. The dancing plague of 1580 for weeks, possibly months. Hundreds of people in Strasbourg and its surrounding areas were gripped by an irresistible, terrifying compulsion to dance. Our story begins with a woman named Frau Troffea. On a hot July day, she simply stepped out of her house and began to move. Imagine the scene. Entire families, entire neighborhoods, drawn into this horrifying compulsion. The authorities in Strasbourg, the city leaders, believing that the victims simply needed to dance it out of their system, perhaps due to hot blood or some other physical ailment, made a truly astonishing decision. They decided to encourage the dancing, but this well-intentioned, yet misguided, intervention only made things worse. Faced with this escalating catastrophe, the authorities reversed course. For centuries, the dancing plague has baffled historians and medical professionals. One popular theory attributes the plague to a poisoning caused by consuming bread made from rye contaminated with a fungus called ergot. Another possibility considered is some form of infectious disease, perhaps a neurological disorder or a virus that caused involuntary movements. The most widely accepted explanation, favored by many historians and medical sociologists today, points to mass psychogenic illness, also known as mass hysteria or collective obsessional behavior. This phenomenon occurs when groups of people experience similar physical symptoms without any known organic cause, often in response to intense psychological stress. And Strasbourg in 1518 was ripe for such an outbreak. The region had suffered through years of famine, poverty, and devastating waves of disease, including leprosy and syphilis. Previous outbreaks of similar dancing epidemics had occurred in Europe, often linked to the cult of Saint Vitus. People already had a cultural framework, a shared idea for what a dancing curse might look like and how it could be cured. This existing belief system could have provided a template for the manifestation of extreme psychological distress. The people were deeply religious, superstitious, and lived in constant fear of divine judgment. They were under immense psychological strain, burdened by hardship and anxiety. It underscores the fragility of the human psyche when pushed to its limits, and the surprising ways that collective stress can manifest physically. It is a chilling testament to the power of belief, the devastating effects of unaddressed societal trauma, and the enduring mysteries of our own minds. A dance of death, born not of joy, but of despair, echoing silently through the centuries. This created a fertile ground for a shared delusion of stress response. In this context, the belief in Saint Vitus, the patron saint against dancing manias, is significant. The dancing in this view was a form of collective coping, a physical manifestation of unbearable stress and trauma. It was an involuntary, uncontrollable outburst, driven by the desperation and fear that pervaded their lives. The authorities' initial decision to encourage the dancing inadvertently fueled the mass hysteria, legitimizing the behavior and providing a stage for its spread through social contagion. The dancing plague of 1518 remains one of history's most unsettling reminders of the complex interplay between mind, body, and society. What would you do if this happened today?